to you from the ICMA Conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government, brought to you by Engaging Local Government Leaders. I'm Meredith Reynolds, Deputy City Manager of Long Beach and GovLove co-host. We have a great episode for you today. We are talking with Olivia Perfetti and Lily Neilsen about their engagement in local government as students at Carnegie Mellon University here in Pittsburgh. But first, the best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. ELGL is a professional association engaging the brightest minds in local government. Check us out and learn more about membership at elgl.org. Now let me introduce today's guests. Olivia Perfetti is a Municipal Engagement Manager at Allegheny County Conservation District. She grew up in Pittsburgh and since a young age has been motivated to tackle the region's environmental problems. She studied environmental science and urban planning at the University of Michigan, then spent a year as an organizer in training with Green Corps. She went on to work for the Pennsylvania-based advocacy group Penn Environment, where she mobilized volunteers to speak out for clean air, clean water, and a livable climate. In 2024, she graduated from Carnegie Mellon University with a Master's of Science in Public Policy and Management. While at CMU, Olivia interned with the City of Pittsburgh, then State Representative Sarah Innamorato, and the transit nonprofit Mobilify Southwest PA. Now at Allegheny County Conservation District, she supports municipal leaders and staff in accessing their suite of technical assistance and services like watershed planning, soil testing, tree planting, and more. Lily Neilsen is a student in the Master's of Science in Public Policy and Management program at Carnegie Mellon University, where she is set to graduate in May 2025. Before coming to Carnegie Mellon, Lily attended West Virginia University, where she studied environmental, soil, and water sciences and political science. During her time at West Virginia University in Morgantown, Lily conducted soil research for the state of West Virginia and worked on 2 farms, where she gained interest in agricultural policy. Currently, Lily is working for New Sun Rising, an intermediary nonprofit as part of a fellowship focused on community and economic development in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Originally from Dallas, Lily's experiences in Appalachia have led her to become interested in urban and rural dynamics in the United States, and she hopes to work at various levels of government throughout her career. Welcome to GovLove, Olivia and Lily. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Okay, let's have some fun. We're going to do a lightning round first to get to know each of you better. So Lily, how about we start with you? What was the first music album that you owned?
Yeah, sure. I think my first, as a young kid, was probably something with Bon Jovi because of my parents. Mm-hmm. But I think my own personal music was probably something from the 1975, around the middle school era of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Olivia, what about you? What was your first music album?
For talking the very first, I had this portable CD player, and so I inherited a bunch of Green Day CDs from my brother, and that was exciting. But then when it came time to get my first iPod Shuffle, I bought Lady Gaga's The Fame, that whole album, and that was on repeat constantly for me.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned iPod Shuffle because my first iPod Shuffle was when I went to Carnegie Mellon University. So that's a very distinct memory in my mind. That was like a brand new toy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Olivia, what was your go-to snack food?
Well, if I'm trying to be healthy, then I'll have a apple and peanut butter or something like that. But what I really want is a Cheez-It. That's my number one.
Cheez-It, very good.
Yeah.
Lily, what about you?
Yeah, I would say I try to stay healthy more often than not. I'm sort of a one chip bag in a sitting type of person, and so I refrain from doing that
right.
often. And so I would say I like hummus and pita, carrots, stuff like that. But almonds, but definitely enjoy chips.
Yeah, all the energy food. Good for
yes,
you.
Yes.
You need that when you're studying, right?
100%.
All right. Lily, what's the last movie or TV show that you watched? Do you get to watch TV? Do you study a ton?
I do. Honestly, I feel like I don't study that much, which is maybe a personal issue. But I really enjoy sitcoms.
Okay.
And so I've watched Friends maybe 13 times. It's ridiculous. We'll never stop watching that. I love it. But the most recent show that I've rewatched, which I've done more than once as well, is called Kim's Convenience. It's a Netflix sitcom, and it's based on a family, Korean-Canadian family that owns a convenience shop in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy that show, and it's just a nice, I think, modern take on a sitcom, but it's also just a cute, happy time, and it's funny, and I just love sitcoms.
Awesome. Olivia, what about you? TV or movie in your past here?
Yeah, TV. I mean, thinking strictly of the last one I watched, I was debating whether or not to say this and affect my professional image, but the last one was a queer dating show called I Kissed a Girl, and I can't say I'm like normally one for like reality dating shows, but I'm really enjoying this one. Would strongly recommend it.
Nice. Very good. Well, you probably have some listeners out there that are with you on that show. So,
Yeah.
All right. So last question, Olivia, we'll start with you. Since we're in the Berg, what is one place you'd enjoy and that you recommend to others when they also visit Pittsburgh?
Yeah, there's so much here. I feel like you'll be able to easily find a lot of like restaurant recommendations online and all that, but I think something that's often missing from the tourist pages is like just go to a park. We have really amazing city parks here if you're looking to like have some peace and quiet on your trip. I live very close to Frick Park, so that's, one I'd definitely recommend, but all of them are really lovely.
Yeah. I lived right across the street from that when I was here in Pittsburgh for grad school. So,
oh my gosh, cool.
Yes, and it makes my little heart happy because I used to work in Parks and Rec. So good answer.
Amazing.
Lily, we'll finish up with you here for our lightning round. What is one place you enjoy that you recommend others visit while in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, sure. I would second with Olivia. Frick and Shinley are really nice parks, especially
Shinley.
having Shinley right near CMU's campus. The place for me that I've really spent a decent amount of time, at least weekly, on Thursdays at 5:30, and I'll be specific enough to encourage other people in the Berg to go.
Good.
Is Garfield Community Farm, which is a neighborhood here in Pittsburgh, and Thursdays at 5:30, from 5:30 to sunset, you can just go and volunteer. I've met actually a lot of close friends there in the past year, and so that's been a nice time to sort of turn my brain off and be outside if you like nature. So
Excellent.
Recommend.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that farm? Because I know that you have some agricultural policy in your background, so you're probably drawn to this. What do they do there?
Yeah, honestly, it's super simple, and it's super funny when I tell my friends. They also ask me, what are you doing there that's so exciting? And honestly, sometimes I'll just be shoveling dirt and soil, or I'll just be putting stuff in the compost and shifting mulch around. And they have chickens there, and it's just nice to be around other people. It's really as simple as that. There's not much, I guess, other than manual labor going on. And so if you don't like that, I'm sorry, that's not probably a place for you. But I, as someone that used to not like to be outside, I think it's nice to sort of just meet people. And so sometimes I'll just go after a long week and talk to people as well. And everyone there is super welcoming and just a great place to be.
That's awesome. Those kind of places in our community where we can kind of get our hands dirty, which is different than what we might normally be doing, whether it's a student or in a new job, and having that opportunity for just sort of some outdoor zen is really important and good things that are part of the fabric of our community. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about kind of where you all started in public service and how you got your start. So Olivia, let's talk about your public service origin story. What attracted you to public service, particularly, government on the local level, and how did your studies at Carnegie Mellon help you in that journey?
Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I mentioned from a young age being motivated by environmental problems. Pittsburgh has really poor air quality. We're actually in the worst 2% of counties nationwide at risk for cancer from air pollution. And growing up, that was very apparent to me in terms of, friends and family suffering the health effects of bad air. And so when I went to college, I was really motivated to study environmental science and figure out how to solve this problem. It seemed like this was something that we should have fixed by now, right? And I ended up learning a lot about the problem, and I felt like I wasn't really learning solutions until like I graduated and started working in this sort of like organizing and advocacy realm. I felt like I learned that these, in particular, environmental problems, but I think it can transcend to social problems as well. Like, these don't just exist because of the way things are. Like, these are often policy problems that could be made better or solved by stronger policies that protect people, people's health, and the environment. So that's how I kind of ended up in public policy. I went to CMU, and I did get the chance to like take a lot of kind of environmental policy-oriented classes, but I think the main thing that CMU gave me that I was missing was the sort of data and policy analysis skills that we really need to solve complex problems. So it was more about like learning those skills that like make us good like data crunchers, frankly, and decision makers when it comes to policy. Then I think the last part was what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So I'm the Municipal Engagement Manager for Allegheny County Conservation District. So that's the job that I had. I got a few months ago right out of graduating from CMU. So it's my job to work with local municipalities and support them in accessing the sort of like natural resource services that we offer. One of the big things is I'm working under a Inflation Reduction Act funded program to grow tree canopy in environmental justice communities. That's something I've been really excited about.
Great. Okay, and Lily, what attracted you to public service, particularly in this kind of local government, local community area? How are your studies at Carnegie Mellon helping you to progress your career?
Mm-hmm. Well, first I'll start with seconding Olivia's concepts on the data analytics side of things. I had 2 degrees coming from West Virginia University. However, they weren't, specifically targeted at certain skills. I took calculus and all chemistry and all the fun things that people will talk about. And I mean that sarcastically, but I wasn't, involved in a lot of things outside of the research that I was doing, which is how I sort of got involved into local government and public policy, the realm of those things. And so I came for the hard skills, and then while progressing those soft skills that I think are really valuable to public policy especially. I actually started in a research lab, though, which I think is a non-traditional way of getting into public policy. And I, frankly, wasn't as interested or even thinking about public policy or politics in general sort of halfway through my undergrad, which is crazy to say that I'm in a public policy graduate degree now. But I was working in a soil science lab, specifically nematology, which is the study of roundworms and microscopic worms in soils in West Virginia. And we were creating sort of a biocontrol, which would operate like a fertilizer for just weeds, but for these worms that are and were killing orchards throughout West Virginia and harming harvests for farmers across the state. And so we got to the point where I had run a bunch of experiments and we were able to get really good results, but regulation came into play, and sort of the next step was to go to the state. And I was like, I wonder what that looks like. And so I sort of hit pause on that, just as research sort of had to, given how money and grants work through that part of research in academia, and then started kind of working on local farms and talking to people at the local level. And so that's sort of where my interest for local government and then just the greater value of community engagement came from.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Worms can lead you to a job in local government.
That's 100%. Would recommend.
Awesome. Well, and the amazing thing about both of you is that you both have the distinction of being Stephen M. Laubel Community Fellows at Carnegie Mellon University, which places students in internships at Pittsburgh public or nonprofit agencies each year. So I'm really curious about your experiences. So Olivia, you were a former student and a former fellow, and so what was your placement and what were your assigned projects?
Mm-hmm. So I kind of patched together multiple internships under the fellowship, and so I had 3. One was with the city of Pittsburgh, City Council District 8. One was with the 21st Legislative District, so for a state representative. And then the final one was with Mobilify Southwest PA, which is a transportation transit nonprofit.
That sounds like overachieving to me.
It sounds like it, but it was kind of two of them were over the summer full time. One of them was part time. So
you can kind of stack the learning over time.
Exactly.
That's great.
And so the city of Pittsburgh and the 21st Legislative District, a lot of that work was constituent services, which I really enjoyed. Some of the most interesting parts of that were working with constituents who came into the office in need of social services. It was really rewarding to feel like we were actually, performing government services in the way that they, are supposed to work, although also frustrating at times, when it didn't, when it was unnecessarily difficult for folks, or it felt like there were a lot of barriers that, we couldn't really get through. So that was really, I think, it was really helpful though to understand how government works in that way, from the perspective more of constituents who are accessing services. Another interesting part of that was drafting email responses on particular policy issues. It helped me learn a lot about the policies and getting all of the if you've ever sent an email to your elected official, someone is actually reading that and tallying it up and sharing it with the elected official, and so being a part of that process was really interesting. And then finally at Mobilify, I did a research project on sort of the state of active transportation, so walking, biking, wheeling infrastructure and funding in Pennsylvania, in particular compared to other states. The main takeaway was really just that a lot of other states have more dedicated funding streams in place and tend to be better about communicating those funding opportunities to municipalities. So that's definitely something that should be improved in PA. And that was my first experience in the transportation world, and I think that was really valuable too, to kind of get a better rounded experience in the policy realm.
Yeah. Well, we're right in the David L. Lawrence Convention Center here for today's podcast, and Penn Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh has some mobility treatments, right? So there's the bike lane, and there's some bulb outs and a variety of other things. Any opinions on that? How do you think they did on that strip of road there for Penn?
Oh my gosh, I'd have to actually go out and look at it properly to say anything. I think the big thing for me also, just as a biker, is protected bike lanes. We just were able to get parking protected bike lanes in Pennsylvania.
Oh, good.
So I can't remember if that project is protected, but if it is, then that's a green light for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Okay, so Lily, you are a current fellow. So where is your placement, and what is your assigned projects? Because you're kind of in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm at New Sun Rising, which is an intermediary nonprofit. And an intermediary nonprofit is, in simple terms, a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits with lower capacity. And so they'll do a lot of heavy lifting on the financial and administration side of that, because some of these projects are individuals that have really great ideas, and they just simply don't have the time or day because they're just working so much, just like everyone else. And so New Sun Rising is that type of nonprofit, and so it's actually in Millvale, which is northeast of here, downtown Pittsburgh, right across the 40th Street Bridge. And so I've been working on various projects with them. I actually spent my full time there over this past summer, starting in May and then finished up in August, and then upon receiving the fellowship from Heinz College at CMU, I was welcomed back there by them, and so I'm going to have this time next year in May of 2025 a full year of experience with them, and so I'm really excited about that and appreciate their giving and willingness to have me on their team and welcome me. But I've been working on various projects, I'd say two, that sort of complement each other really well. This past summer was an EPA grant that they applied for. It was this big $20 million grant that they applied for and they had projects under that, and so we're waiting any day now to see if that funding comes through, and I'll be excited.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. They've all put so much work into it, and so it's exciting to see what will happen, especially since that money would make a huge impact on this area. And so that grant, I sort of got to oversee that project and go attend a lot of meetings, even not knowing too much about what was actually going on. But at the end of that, was able to take the projects and their partners' work and create a one-pager that we're now distributing to government officials, whether that's municipal or even state representatives who I met with, who I've been meeting with, and met with one last week. And so that was a really great sort of turnaround from paper to in real life, in the flesh, of sort of what they've been doing and presenting that to people that can make a difference. And then second, I guess right now I'm working on sort of grant research. They have a program that they're, or I guess an initiative for their program called Launch, that they're helping grow individuals and then groups of people's projects. And so one that I've been working on is going to be surrounding the legal processes associated with land trusts. And so I'll get a super general 10,000-foot view on that process, but then also we'll be helping them in the research process associated with that. And so lots of things to be working on, and I've just been sort of plugging in wherever I can and what's most helpful for them at the moment.
That's great. Well, Lily, what are some kind of high level for you takeaways, learning moments, aha moments that you've taken from this experience as part of the fellowship that will help you kind of in some of the next steps of your career?
Sure, yeah, I think so. Two parts of that, and this makes sense naturally to me, but is the personal growth aspect of this along with the professional aspect. I think the first one is sort of both, in that not taking shortcuts is really beneficial to you personally, but then also your team at work, in any industry, in any field. Neilsen Rising does a really great job of taking their time with things, not in like a slow things down just to simply slow things down, but to really create meaning in the work that they do and help each other out as a team to be more efficient. And so something that I can give as an example is at their weekly meetings, they will sort of have a little round robin and say, hey, I'm at a 10, which is I'm super busy, super stressed this week, and then the next person might say I'm a 2, and they'll sort of play matchmaker in a way, and we'll be like, hey, this person's at a 10, whoever's at a 5 or below, or if you feel like you can help out, please do. And so then everyone can kind of look each other in the eye and know, oh, okay, that person's there, let me see what I can do for them, and now I know, and it doesn't have to be a midweek, oh, I have so much to do, can someone help me, type of thing. And so I think that's a really proactive way, but also genuine way to just be kind to your teammates, but also just more efficient with your time.
Well, and you get to build transferable skills in that too, right? Because if
100%.
you step up to help a colleague and maybe it's something you've never done before, they're teaching you something new.
Yeah. As
that's pretty innovative.
someone young in their career, it was nice to be able to make my first Gantt chart, which I've never done. And so I was like, oh, I'll just do it really quick. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. But I just did it, and they were super helpful, and they're still using it. So it's something as simple as that. It's nice to have impact there. And then I guess the second thing is sort of debunking myself. I've learned to appreciate being wrong, which I think is really hard to admit, but also something at the end of the day is important, especially in public policy, because even with as much data and big data in the world, assumptions are made, whether that's with policy or just like personal things, whether we like it or not. And so how you think about the world is really important, and we definitely don't know everything, and we're all still learning. And so that's been something I've learned in every process along the way with them.
Yeah, that's really introspective. And having that sense of intention and unintended consequences, right? As sometimes when we think about policy and kind of thinking that all the way through, and being able to evaluate and learn from the things that didn't go the way perhaps we intended or didn't go well, and kind of pivoting to something else is definitely something I'd love to see more in the government space. It's really hard to face your constituents or your taxpayers and say, we tried something and we worked really hard on it and it didn't work out, so we should plan to abandon this thing and try something different. Yeah.
I have a friend, Alyssa Lyon, who would do this more justice than I would, but I spoke to her earlier, or I guess later in the semester of last spring this year, and she was saying the difference between intent and impact is really big in policy, but then also just in your life is like, and this is a really simple example, but it's, you never intend to get in a car accident, but at the end of the day, bad things happen, and so intentions sometimes just don't line up, and that's really hard to get right, especially in policy. And so just being genuine and candid with each other, I think, is really valuable, because we're all just out here trying to help the community, help people, and make life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I like that. So Olivia, how about you? What are some key learning moments that were part of your work under the fellowship that maybe you bring into your current role today?
Well, Lily, I loved all of your answers. I just feel like you have such a great perspective on this, so just say that. I guess I'll start with talking a little bit more about I have something about me too, but the landscape. Pittsburgh has a really interesting landscape when it comes to local government. Allegheny County has, I think, 130 self-governing municipalities, which is the most per capita of any county in the nation. So there are just a lot of local leaders in the mix here. And then take that, and we're also under home rule, which gives local governments more authority to operate, relative to the state. And then that combined with the fact that there are over 3,000 nonprofits in the county because of all of the foundation funding that we have in the region, it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, which can be a really good thing in terms of tackling a lot of issues and getting a lot of different perspectives at the table, but can also create challenges. So I think just learning about that landscape and how it's distinct from other parts of the nation, and how to kind of form more genuine partnerships and make those partnerships work for communities. That sounds pretty vague, but it's been, definitely a good learning experience. And I think for something that I've learned about myself, sometimes I am how did I get into this? Because
we all think that some days.
Yeah, I'm generally a pretty introverted person, and yet I keep taking these pretty public-facing, public-speaking heavy jobs, working with people all day, and it's been great. I've gotten so out of my comfort zone, and I think really grown as a person because of that. So I guess I would just say, if you're someone who I don't know, doesn't really see yourself in those roles, but you're passionate about policy issues, I would say try it out, because it could end up being a really good fit, even if it doesn't seem like it would be.
So you surprised yourself, huh?
Definitely, yeah. I still do.
Debunk yourself.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So for you, Olivia, you have you're in this fellowship, you've graduated, you have your role here. What kinds of things are you working on currently in this job? And I'm imagining a lot of what you learned at Carnegie Mellon helped you kind of do that work to the best of your ability. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I mentioned right now I'm working for Allegheny County Conservation District. I think that in terms of how the fellowship helped me in my new role, like I mentioned before, understanding how local government works and how those partnerships and organizations and communities and other levels of government kind of work together to get stuff done, that's been really helpful. Above all, I would say part of why I chose Carnegie Mellon was because I wanted to learn policy in the place where I planned to practice it. So being from Pittsburgh and, wanting to stay here at least for the time being, I felt like being in Pittsburgh and learning the political context here would be really helpful. The fellowship specifically, I think, through all of that and the experience I had around it, I've gotten a good mix of going from environmental science to learning kind of organizing and advocacy, and then finally public policy and the data analysis, policy analysis at CMU gave me a pretty good, well-rounded understanding of the policy world, especially environmental policy. So, yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I think, you've woven this journey for yourself where you've pulled all these really critical pieces that, make you successful and sort of where you are today. Any different other kind of combination of things might have led you down a different path, but it sounds like you pieced yourself together some good skills there.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so Lily, you still have a number of months to finish your studies. I love asking this question, kind of playfully, what do you hope to do this? What do you want to be when you grow up, right?
Right. Yeah. When I grow up, who knows?
We're also asking ourselves that too.
Right. And so step one is graduate. Yeah.
Yes.
In May of 2025, I'll be exciting, and I'm looking forward to that now. I'm particularly interested in working at the state level. I feel like that's maybe a natural place or path that I feel that could be beneficial while keeping local and community engagement in my strong periphery, because I do value the local government, but then also just that level of gratification, but then also being able to really see what's working and what's not, especially in policy. And I also feel like being a middleman is sort of exciting because being between federal and local governments, it's like you're the relayer of information, but then also you get to see a lot of different things that you might not at either level, with the opportunity to connect with people from both levels at local and federal government agencies or departments. But I'm definitely keeping my options open. I am confident that I am unsure of what I'm particularly interested in, which I think is might be the first time I've actually said that, but I am also confident in my passion for urban and rural dynamics in the United States specifically. I think living in, which I wouldn't necessarily consider Morgantown as rural as other parts of West Virginia,
Sure.
But living in West Virginia and being able to do research and travel to those other parts of the state that are really rural, while living or coming from Dallas, Texas, which is insane, and then living in Pittsburgh, which I find myself really enjoying right now because it's in the perfect middle between Morgantown and Dallas, which is something I never thought would happen, is a great place to get involved with that type of urban and rural dynamic, having lived in those places and getting those experiences, and as well as meeting people and communities from those. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Who knows what will happen, but I'm excited to, again, keep my options open and sort of explore all opportunities.
Yeah.
So.
Pittsburgh is a special place for being confidently unsure because you get to kind of have that open-mindedness, and there's a lot to take in, a lot of experiences that one can have here. It's very connected and not far from other places on the East Coast, and so lots of future opportunities for you, I'm sure. That's
100%.
great.
Yeah,
That's
looking
great.
forward to it.
Yeah. So I'm curious about this question. As I'm thinking about, the amazing sort of resumes I've seen from you and the experiences that you've had, Olivia, you have a position. Lily, you're looking for a position. What do you say and what can you share with, governments and public service agencies about hiring valuable talent like yourself, right? Because you're coming out, you're drawn to the work in some way. You're looking for a particular experience or work culture that's supportive of you, and the kinds of things that you're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about that. So Olivia, what do you think local governments or public service agencies should know about hiring valuable talent that are coming from these graduate school programs like CMU?
Yeah, everyone I've worked with in the public service field and everyone I went to school with really are interested in this field because they want to serve the public and advance stronger policies that will better serve people and communities. Like, we are here because we're passionate about the issues. And so, like, I don't think that's changed. Like, that very much still feels true. And I think one of the barriers that I've identified, though, is that especially in today's era, a lot of talent is lost because of like changes in our expenses. So these days, students have mountains of college and grad school debt. We have car loans. I mean, it's like incredibly expensive to buy a house. And so I think sometimes I've found that the salaries aren't keeping up with those expenses, and I think especially in Allegheny County, local government salaries are a big barrier for folks who are really passionate about this work, but are taking higher paying jobs because they need to do that. So I think that's maybe one thing I would say is, like, you've got really good people who are really passionate about these issues, and so, like, yeah, value that talent as much as you can.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably thinking about the number of municipalities and townships that exist in this area. It might be a little bit of a different dynamic, somewhere else in the country where you don't have as many smaller agencies or units of government, but you have a larger region or larger metropolitan area where more tax base is going to that one location, and they can think about how to value that talent and how to structure their organization in such a way. I'm curious, just kind of thinking about the supposition of, I wonder how much that plays into having a large number of those municipalities and townships.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think it probably does affect the funding that a lot of these smaller municipalities are working with. And I think a lot of that is, like you sort of alluded to this, it's decided at the state in many cases, and so it's not necessarily something that is in local municipalities' control, but is something we could be working on at the state and local level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's, everyone likes to be valued for their skills and talents. That's not a local government or public service thing. That's a human thing, right? And so thinking about, pay and, because it's a yes and conversation, right? Pay and, like, the culture and the environment and benefits and flexibility and things that many want or have come to expect, like, in the job, these days. And so, thinking about kind of what is that whole package for those folks who are really talented and passionate. Yeah,
definitely.
So Lily, what about you? So what do you think that local governments or public service agencies should know about hiring valuable talent? And maybe talk a little bit about what might draw you to the work and what kind of a workplace or culture that you're looking for as you come out of your graduate program.
Yeah, sure. I think Olivia really hit a good point with the pay. I know it's really tough to say that and just expect something to, come out of the waterworks, but it's specifically for Pittsburgh, and that we speak about this a lot at Hines at CMU, that, there will be like events that the city or the county will have that are free and offered to students as sort of incentives to keep local talent here. And I think at the end of the day, it's really hard because we're in this, I don't want to say if it's like a transitional phase, but it's, big data can be used to do really good things too. And so I think being in a really technical space, sometimes we can or not necessarily we, but some people, and I even get into this in my own head sometimes of, I can use this for like private sector things, or not necessarily thinking always public, or I'm more looking at it from a financial side. And so sort of having the jobs, I guess, that are open to those types of things as well within local government is important, because a lot of people specifically in our program are very intelligent and geared toward those technical skills. And so often when you think local government, it's not like you're making a robot or doing something crazy that's actually happening at CMU that I'm not a part of necessarily. But I actually was able to train an AI, like sort of generative AI chat that operates similar to ChatGPT over the summer. And when I told people this, they were like, "Where did you work?" I was like, "I worked for a nonprofit." And they were like, "What? That's crazy." And so I guess sort of opening the space to have conversation in job postings, job openings that, you can experiment, or that we are experimenting with these types of technologies is important, but also understanding that the budget might not be there, because some of this stuff is obviously very expensive. But yeah, just sort of widening that. Technology can be useful. It doesn't always need to be present for things to get done, as we know, but opening that up to people, especially in technical spaces, I think will allow sort of the pay to come along with that technology, but then also those meaningful connections and relationships with people, because maybe not all people in those technical spaces are thinking of local government.
Well, I like the concept of the job description or job flyer, sort of modernizing those things to signal we are interested in innovation. We are interested in technical skills, and it doesn't just have to be a technical job. It can be, you see a lot of like administrative or management analysts, right, where they're doing a variety of things for strategic planning or process optimization, or, running the operations side of budgets and personnel or programs, and kind of indicating even in those spaces some of that systems thinking, use of data, and innovation and improvement would be welcomed into some of those roles, and thinking about it that way. I like that. Yeah. Good. Okay, well, thank you both for being here today. I want to ask a couple final questions here as we wrap up. Would really love to hear from each of you what's next. So let's talk a little bit about, are there some special or interesting things that you're working on that our listeners should look out for? And Lily, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So as the current Lobel Fellow at Hines and CMU, I'll be hosting an event that Olivia hosted just this time last year, actually, for the fellowship. And so I haven't really planned anything yet. I know that it'll happen in April. So for people that are in Pittsburgh, I will be posting and sharing that across campus, but as well as in the community. And so I hope that people located here and nearby will spread the word and will be interested in coming to that whenever I decide on a date. I guess two other things. I am working on a startup company called Neptune Chain, working actually within like the intersection of Olivia and I's work is working to decrease nutrient pollution in watersheds across the U.S. And we're working with farmers right now to sort of incentivize them to switch to better practices like organic farming, organic fertilizers, and they'll get paid for that essentially. And so that's been a really exciting thing. Then lastly, I decided to go on a trip in December myself to Japan. And so that's something I've never done before. And so I'm looking forward to that and closing off the fall semester sort of with that trip, and then looking to spring, starting the year in January, and looking forward to whatever is to come after May and everything in between.
Excellent. Our listeners can't see this, but you're mentioning this startup and what it does and the intersectionality with Olivia's work, and Olivia's face just absolutely that was so sweet. See, this is what collaboration looks like, right? It's kind of cool.
I got so excited because at the Conservation District we do a lot of agricultural preservation and nutrient management, soil conservation, so I should if you're interested, I'll put you in touch with the person who does that.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, she's like always going out to farms and like working with them. I think working with them to like figure out how to, comply with the law, but also like proactively manage nutrient pollution. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, would love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matchmaking here on Gut.
Right.
Yeah, right.
This is why we love what we love.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Great connections.
Well, Olivia, what about you? What are some of the next up things for you that our listeners should look out for?
Yeah, I have been getting excited about doing some election work leading up to November. I've worked on a number of campaigns like over the last 5 or 6 years, and I always feel called to canvass. I'm like, I don't know, maybe one of those weird people who really actually loves canvassing. Like I went out yesterday and it was so fun, beautiful weather. Fall is the best time to do it. So I'll be doing that like a little bit part-time on the weekends. And I think that's the main thing. I'm going on a trip to India for a friend's wedding in November. Wow. So that'll be a big trip, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Have you ever been to India before?
No, this is going to be my first time.
Oh,
yeah.
Excellent.
I'm really excited.
First time for both of you. Some big travel plans. That's excellent.
Yeah.
It's also, I guess, now that we have a chance to spread the word, the canvassing is so important. I don't know if you're working as a poll worker.
I was thinking about it.
If you're in Pittsburgh or just if you're listening, like it's happening. And so I just signed up to be a poll worker for the first time, which will be really interesting. I've never done that. So
it's really fun.
It's always a really great learning opportunity to do something like that, like in person right there. So yeah, I encourage any listeners to do that.
Yeah. In any of your communities, it's a very tangible way. I've done it before when I used to live in San Francisco, and it was, first time was eye-opening, and then when you do it over time, it's like you kind of get the hang of it. But it's a very real way to contribute. So
yeah,
nice,
excellent. Well, you all have some great plans ahead of you, and I'm jealous. So, all right. So last question here for both of you: if you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you each pick as the exit music for this episode? Olivia, what would you say?
I'm in my Chapel Roan era, so I was really trying to think of a Chapel Roan song that would fit, and I couldn't think of one. So my choice that I'm going with is Los Ageless by St. Vincent.
Excellent.
Like that. It's just got a really cool beat at the beginning.
Yeah, there's a good vibe to that one. Very good. All right, Lily, take us home. What about you?
Yeah, so my first thought for the song, it's called Oye Como Va by Santana. I just really like the entire song, but specifically the beginning. I feel like it's a good end of movie type thing. It's groovy and also just funny to me. But yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Of course. Well, thank you to Lily and Olivia for joining us today on our podcast. We had a really good time here at the ICMA Conference in Pittsburgh. That ends our GovLove episode for today. Subscribe to GovLove on your favorite podcast app. New episodes drop every Friday. If you are already subscribed to GovLove, go tell a friend or colleague about this podcast or share on social media. Help us spread the word that GovLove is the go-to place for local government stories. GovLove is brought to you by ELGL, Engaging Local Government Leaders. The best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. You can reach us online at elgl.org/govlove or at GovLove Podcast on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.